Olivia Bennett pushed through the revolving doors of Riverside Medical Center, her navy blue scrubs freshly pressed despite the early morning subway rush. At 28 years old, she had perfected the art of looking composed even when running on 5 hours of sleep. The hospital lobby buzzed with its usual morning energy, but Olivia moved through it with practiced ease, her mind already organizing the tasks ahead. Her supervisor, Patricia Chen, intercepted her near the nurse's station. The older woman carried a tablet and wore an expression that Olivia had learned meant something important was about to happen. Patricia had been working at Riverside for nearly 20 years and rarely got flustered, but today there was an unusual energy in her movements. "Olivia, I need you on the executive floor this morning. We have a special appointment coming in, and Director Matthews specifically requested you handle it." Patricia glanced at her tablet before continuing. "Julian Westbrook from Westbrook Digital Solutions will be here at 9:30 for his comprehensive health screening." Olivia felt her stomach flutter slightly. Everyone in the city knew about Julian Westbrook. His company had revolutionized cloud security systems, and his face regularly appeared in business magazines and tech news articles. She had always pictured him as another self-important executive who treated healthcare workers like servants. "Is there anything specific I should know?" Olivia asked, checking the time on her watch. She had 40 minutes to prepare, just that he values punctuality and privacy. His assistant emphasized that he prefers minimal staff interaction. Patricia handed her a file folder. "His medical history is straightforward, no major issues. This should be routine." The man behind the magazine. Covers Olivia spent the next 30 minutes preparing examination room 12 on the executive floor. The space was noticeably nicer than the standard patient rooms, with large windows overlooking the city and furniture that actually looked comfortable. She arranged her equipment methodically, ensuring everything was sterile and organized. Whatever her preconceptions about Julian Westbrook, every patient deserved her best care. At exactly 9:30, there was a soft knock on the door. Olivia smoothed her scrubs one last time and called out for him to enter. The door opened, and she found herself looking at a man who was simultaneously exactly what she expected and completely different. Julian Westbrook stood about 6 feet tall, with dark brown hair that looked like he had recently run his fingers through it. He wore expensive clothes, a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, but there was something approachable about the way he carried himself. What struck Olivia most were his eyes, a deep hazel that seemed tired in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. "Miss Bennett." Julian extended his hand, and his handshake was firm but not aggressive. "Thank you for seeing me this morning. I know these screenings can be tedious for everyone involved, not at all. Please have a seat, and we can get started with your health history." Olivia gestured to the examination table, surprised by how normal he seemed. Most wealthy patients she had encountered made sure everyone knew about their status within the first 30 seconds. As Olivia began reviewing his file, she noticed Julian watching her with an intensity that felt different from the usual patient nervousness. He answered her standard questions about his diet, exercise habits, and stress levels, but his responses became increasingly honest in a way that surprised her, breaking through the surface. "How many hours of sleep do you typically get per night?" Olivia asked, wrapping the blood pressure cuff around his arm. Julian hesitated before answering. "Honestly, maybe 4 hours. Sometimes less. I know that is terrible, but there is always something that needs my attention. A crisis in the Tokyo office, an investor call from London, a product launch that cannot wait." Olivia watched the blood pressure reading climb higher than it should for someone his age. "When was the last time you took a real vacation? Not a working trip or a conference, but actual time off where you disconnected completely." Julian laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "I genuinely cannot remember. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and even then I spent half the time answering emails. Running a company means you are never really off duty." As Olivia continued the examination, she found herself genuinely concerned about what she was seeing. His blood pressure was elevated. His resting heart rate was too high, and there were subtle signs of chronic stress throughout his body. This was not just a busy executive, this was someone pushing himself toward serious health problems. "Your body is showing significant stress markers. Have you experienced any chest pain, shortness of breath, or unusual fatigue? Olivia made notes in his chart, but she was watching his face carefully. Sometimes I feel this tightness in my chest, like there is a weight pressing down. I assumed it was just anxiety from work pressure. Julian met her eyes, and Olivia saw something vulnerable there. Am I in trouble? Not yet, but you are heading in that direction if you do not make some changes. Olivia set down her pen and spoke to him the way she would any patient whose health concerned her. You cannot run your body like a machine that never needs rest. Eventually, something will break down. The moment. Everything shifted. Julian was quiet for a long moment, studying her face with an expression she could not quite read. You actually care, do you not? Most doctors just lecture me about stress management and send me on my way. You genuinely seem concerned. Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. Every patient matters, whether they are a tech executive or someone without insurance. Your health is important regardless of what you do for a living. What about you? Julian asked, surprising her with the question. Do you take care of yourself as well as you take care of your patients? The question caught Olivia off guard. She thought about her cramped apartment, the double shifts she worked to help pay for her younger brother's college tuition, the way she often skipped meals because she was too busy or too tired. When she looked up, Julian was still watching her with that same intensity. That is not what we are here to discuss. Olivia tried to redirect the conversation back to professional territory, but something had shifted in the room. Maybe it should be. Julian's voice was soft but steady. You asked me when I last took time for myself. I'm asking you the same question. When do you do something just for you, not for work or family or obligation? Olivia found herself answering honestly. I do not remember either. There is always someone who needs something, always another bill to pay or another crisis to handle. That is just life. It does not have to be. Julian said it so simply, as if changing your entire existence was as easy as deciding to do it. What if we both tried something different? What do you mean? Olivia's heart was beating faster, and she was not sure if it was nerves or something else entirely. Have coffee with me, not as a patient and nurse, just as two people who both forgot how to slow down. Let me take you somewhere quiet where we can talk without blood pressure cuffs and medical charts. Julian smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Unless that would be completely inappropriate, in which case I apologize for overstepping. Olivia knew she should say no. Every professional instinct told her this was crossing a line. But looking at Julian, seeing the hope and loneliness in his eyes that probably mirrored her own, she found herself nodding. The business card won coffee. Olivia heard herself say, but somewhere normal. Not some exclusive place where they charge more for a latte than I make in an hour. Julian laughed, and this time it sounded genuine. Deal. Do you know the Blue Door Cafe on Maple Street? They have excellent pastries, and I promise the prices are reasonable. How does a millionaire know about the Blue Door Cafe? Olivia asked, unable to hide her smile. Sometimes I walk around the city without security or assistance, just to remember what normal feels like. That cafe makes the best blueberry muffins I have ever tasted. Julian pulled out his phone. Can I have your number, or would you prefer to just set a time now? Olivia hesitated only a moment before reciting her number. Tomorrow afternoon? I have a late shift, but I am free until 3, tomorrow at 1. Julian entered her information with fingers that moved quickly across the screen. And Olivia, thank you for seeing me today. Not just the medical examination, but really seeing me. After Julian left, Olivia stood in the examination room feeling like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. Patricia appeared in the doorway, curiosity written across her face. How did it go? Was he difficult? Patricia asked. No. Olivia gathered her equipment slowly, still processing what had happened. He was actually really kind. Just lonely, I think. That evening, as Olivia rode the subway home to her small apartment in Brooklyn, she could not stop thinking about hazel eyes and honest conversations. Her phone buzzed with a text from her younger brother asking for help with his biology homework, and she smiled as she replied. Life was complicated and messy and full of responsibilities she could not ignore. But for the first time in years, Olivia Bennett felt a flutter of possibility. Tomorrow afternoon at the Blue Door Cafe, she would have coffee with a man who had somehow seen past her nurse's uniform to the person underneath. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She pulled out the business card Julian had left on the counter before leaving, his personal cell phone number written in neat handwriting across the back. Beneath it, he had written a simple message that made her heart skip. "Looking forward to really talking with you." Olivia tucked the card carefully into her wallet and watched the city lights blur past the subway windows. Tomorrow would come soon enough, bringing with it coffee, conversation, and the beginning of something that might change everything. Olivia changed her outfit 3 times before leaving her apartment. She finally settled on dark jeans and a soft cream sweater, simple, but nice enough for coffee with someone who probably wore designer labels even on casual days. Her roommate Jennifer had raised an eyebrow when Olivia explained where she was going, but wisely kept her concerns to herself. The Blue Door Cafe sat on a quiet corner in a neighborhood that existed somewhere between trendy and working class. The building was old brick with large windows that let in afternoon sunlight, and the menu was handwritten on a chalkboard behind the counter. Olivia arrived 10 minutes early, nerves making her walk faster than necessary. Julian was already there, sitting at a small table near the window. He wore jeans and a navy blue Henley shirt, looking more relaxed than he had in his business suit. When he saw Olivia, his face lit up with a smile that made her momentarily forget her nervousness. "You found it." Julian stood as she approached, a gesture that felt old-fashioned but genuine. "I got here early and already ordered myself a coffee. What would you like?" "Just a regular coffee with milk, please. And one of those blueberry muffins you mentioned." Olivia sat down while Julian went to the counter, watching him interact easily with the barista. He seemed comfortable here in this modest cafe, far removed from the executive world he usually inhabited. When Julian returned with her order, he settled back into his chair with an expression of contentment. "This place reminds me of a coffee shop near my college campus. Before everything got complicated with the business, I used to spend hours there working on code and drinking terrible coffee." "Where did you go to school?" Olivia broke off a piece of her muffin, finding it was indeed as good as Julian had promised. "State University. Nothing fancy." Julian smiled at what must have been her surprised expression. "I know people probably assume I went to some Ivy League school, but my family could not afford that. I worked 3 jobs to pay tuition and lived off instant noodles for 4 years." Stories from before Olivia found herself relaxing as they talked. Julian asked about her path to nursing, and she told him about growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania, about her mother who had been a hospital volunteer and inspired her career choice. She explained how she had come to New York 5 years ago with big dreams and a small savings account, determined to make a difference in a major medical center. "My younger brother Tyler is in his 2nd year at State studying engineering." Olivia stirred her coffee, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility. "I help with his tuition because our parents cannot afford it. Dad had a stroke 3 years ago, and the medical bills pretty much wiped out everything they had saved. That must be incredibly stressful for you." Julian leaned forward, his attention completely focused on her. "Paying New York rent while also supporting your family? It is what it is." Olivia shrugged, though the casual gesture hid years of exhaustion. "Tyler is brilliant, and he deserves the chance to finish school without drowning in debt. I just pick up extra shifts when I need to. The hospital is always looking for coverage." Julian was quiet for a moment, and Olivia worried she had overshared. This was supposed to be a light coffee date, not a therapy session about her financial struggles. But when she looked up, Julian was not judging her or pitying her. He was looking at her with something that felt like admiration. "You are remarkable." Julian said it simply, as if stating an obvious fact. "Most people I know complain endlessly about minor inconveniences while you are quietly holding your family together and showing up every day to take care of strangers. That kind of strength is rare." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes unexpectedly. She was not used to anyone acknowledging how hard she worked just to keep everything from falling apart. "Tell me about you. Before Westbrook Digital Solutions, before the success. Who were you?" The man behind the success, Julian's expression grew distant, as if he was looking back through years to a different version of himself. "I was just a kid who loved computers and had this crazy idea that I could build something that would make the internet safer for everyone. My dad ran a small electronics repair shop in Seattle, and I grew up taking things apart and putting them back together." He told her about the early days of his company, working out of a cramped apartment with two college friends, living on pizza and ambition. He described the moment when their security software caught the attention of a major investor, how everything changed overnight from scrambling to pay rent to negotiating million-dollar deals. Success happened so fast that I did not have time to process it. One day I was debugging code at 2 in the morning, and the next day I was being interviewed by business magazines. People started treating me differently, like I had become someone else entirely. Julian's voice carried a note of sadness. I lost my two best friends from college because they could not handle the dynamic shift. They wanted money and positions they had not earned, and when I said no, they accused me of changing. "Did you change?" Olivia asked gently. Julian considered the question carefully. Yes and no. I am still the same person who cares about making technology that helps people. But I became guarded, suspicious of everyone's motives. When you have money, you never know if people like you or what you can do for them. It gets lonely, being unable to trust anyone. Is that why you asked me to coffee? Because I treated you like a regular person during your exam? Olivia needed to understand his motivation, to know if this connection she felt was real or just her imagination. The truth between them, no. Julian reached across the table and gently took her hand, the touch sending electricity through her. I asked you to coffee because when I looked into your eyes, I saw someone who understands what it means to carry weight that no one else sees. Someone who shows up every day and does hard things because it matters. Someone real in a world that feels increasingly fake. Olivia's breath caught. She wanted to pull her hand away to protect herself from the inevitable hurt when this fairy tale ended and reality reasserted itself. But Julian's hand was warm, and his eyes were so honest that she found herself squeezing back instead. I am scared, Olivia admitted. We live in completely different worlds. You have a penthouse and probably a car that costs more than I will make in 10 years. I share a 400-square-foot apartment with a roommate and take the subway everywhere. What happens when the novelty of dating someone normal wears off? Julian did not let go of her hand. What if it is not about novelty? What if I am tired of people who only care about status and money? What if I want someone who reminds me why any of this matters? The afternoon sun slanted through the cafe windows, casting golden light across their table. Around them, other customers chatted and laughed, but Olivia felt like she and Julian existed in their own separate bubble. She could feel herself falling, tumbling towards something that terrified and excited her. I work double shifts. I have student loans. My idea of a fancy dinner is when I order extra guacamole at the burrito place. Olivia needed him to understand the reality of her life. I cannot just drop everything to fly to Paris for a weekend or attend charity galas in expensive dresses. I do not want you to be anyone other than who you are. Julian's thumb traced small circles on the back of her hand. I have been to Paris a dozen times for business, and it felt empty every single time. What I want is this. Sitting in a neighborhood cafe, eating muffins and talking to someone who sees me as Julian, not as the CEO or the millionaire or the guy on magazine covers. An evening walk. They stayed at the Blue Door Cafe until the owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Park, gently reminded them that closing time was approaching. Olivia was shocked to discover they had been talking for nearly 4 hours. Time had slipped away unnoticed while they shared stories, dreams, and pieces of themselves they rarely showed others. Can I walk you home? Julian asked as they stepped out into the cool evening air. Or to the subway if you prefer. You can walk me home. Olivia surprised herself with the answer. It is not far, just about 15 minutes from here. They walked slowly through the neighborhood, their shoulders occasionally brushing. Olivia pointed out landmarks in her daily life. The bodega where she bought her morning coffee. The small park where she sometimes sat on her days off. The library where she had spent countless hours studying during nursing school. You really love this neighborhood, Julian observed, watching her face as she talked. It is home. Olivia smiled. Not fancy, but it is real. People know each other here. Mrs. Park at the cafe remembers how everyone takes their coffee. The bodega owner asks about my brother's classes. It feels like community. I live in a building where I do not know any of my neighbors' names, Julian said quietly. The doorman calls me Mr. Westbrook, and everyone keeps their distance. I have a view of the entire city, but sometimes it feels like I am watching life happen from behind glass. They reached Olivia's building, a 5-story walk-up with a slightly crooked front door. She turned to face Julian, suddenly very aware of how close they were standing. The streetlight above them created a small circle of illumination, while the rest of the block faded into twilight. "Thank you for today." Olivia meant it completely. "I have not felt this relaxed in longer than I can remember. Thank you for giving me a chance." Julian reached up to brush a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle. "I know this is complicated, but I would really like to see you again." "I would like that too," Olivia admitted, her heart racing. Julian leaned in slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away if she wanted. When their lips met, it was soft and sweet, a kiss that held promise and question in equal measure. Olivia felt warmth spread through her entire body, a sensation that had nothing to do with the autumn evening and everything to do with the man holding her carefully, as if she was something precious. When they finally separated, both were slightly breathless. Julian rested his forehead against hers, and Olivia could feel him smiling. "Saturday," Julian whispered. "Let me take you somewhere. Not fancy, just somewhere we can spend more time together." "Okay," Olivia agreed, even as the practical part of her mind tried to list all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Saturday. Reality. Intrudes later that night. Olivia lay in her narrow bed staring at the ceiling, while Jennifer snored softly in the bed across their tiny room. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tyler asking if she could send money by Friday for his textbooks. Another text from her mother reminded her about their father's upcoming specialist appointment, which would mean more medical bills to help cover. Olivia opened her banking app and looked at her balance, calculating how much she could send Tyler while still making rent. She would need to pick up at least 2 extra shifts this week, which meant less sleep and more exhaustion. The familiar weight of responsibility settled back on her shoulders. Her phone buzzed again, but this time it was Julian. "Just wanted to say goodnight and thank you again for today. You made me remember what happiness feels like." Olivia smiled despite her stress. "Good night, Julian. Today was special." She set her phone down and closed her eyes, but sleep was slow to come. In the darkness, she replayed the afternoon, the easy conversation, the way Julian had listened to her stories as if they mattered. The kiss that had made her feel things she thought she had forgotten how to feel. But doubt crept in around the edges of her happiness. What happened when Julian's world demanded his attention again? When board meetings and investor calls and international business pulled him back into a life she could never be part of? What happened when he realized that dating someone with her financial struggles meant complications he did not need? Olivia touched her lips, still able to feel the ghost of his kiss. For now, she decided she would let herself hope. Saturday would come, and with it, more time with a man who had somehow seen past every wall she had built around her heart. Across the city, Julian stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, looking out at the lights of New York spread below him. His phone rested in his hand, still showing his last message to Olivia. For the first time in years, his apartment did not feel like a beautiful prison. It felt like a place he was eager to leave, to return to cramped cafes and neighborhood streets, to a woman whose smile made everything else seem less important. The question neither of them could answer yet was whether their connection could survive the vast difference between their worlds. But for tonight, they both chose to believe it could. Saturday morning arrived with unexpected chaos. Olivia woke to 17 missed calls from the hospital and a text from Patricia asking her to come in immediately for an emergency staffing situation. She texted Julian apologetically, explaining she would need to reschedule their date. His response came quickly, understanding and kind, telling her not to worry and that he hoped everything was okay at work. The emergency turned into a 12-hour shift as Olivia helped manage an influx of patients from a multi-car accident on the highway. By the time she finally left the hospital at 9 that evening, exhaustion had settled deep into her bones. She just wanted to go home, take a hot shower, and collapse into bed. But when Olivia walked through the hospital's main entrance, she froze in absolute shock. The entire front plaza had been transformed. There were hundreds of white candles in glass holders creating a pathway of light. A pianist sat at a beautiful grand piano playing something soft and romantic. And standing in the center of it all was Julian, wearing a tuxedo and holding an enormous bouquet of red roses. Hospital staff and visitors had gathered to watch, their phones out recording the scene. Olivia felt her face burn with embarrassment as every eye turned toward her. This was exactly what she had feared, the kind of over-the-top public display that highlighted just how different their worlds were. Olivia Bennett. Julian's voice carried across the plaza, amplified somehow so everyone could hear. These past weeks, knowing you have been the best of my life. I wanted to do something special to show you how much you mean to me. The honest conversation, Olivia walked toward Julian on legs that felt unsteady. She could hear people whispering around her, could see the cameras recording every moment. When she reached him, she kept her voice low and controlled despite the anger and embarrassment churning inside her. "Julian, can we talk privately, please?" Something in her tone must have reached him because his confident smile faltered. He set down the roses and nodded, following her away from the crowd to a quieter corner of the plaza. The pianist continued playing, but the romantic atmosphere had shifted into something awkward and uncertain. "What is wrong? I thought you would like this." Julian looked genuinely confused. "I wanted to do something romantic, to show everyone how special you are, by turning me into a spectacle." Olivia struggled to keep her voice even. "Julian, I just worked 12 hours taking care of trauma patients. I am exhausted and probably smell like hospital disinfectant. And you ambushed me with cameras and crowds and this huge production that makes me feel like I am in some reality show." "I did not mean it that way." Julian's face fell. "I just wanted to make you happy. This is not what makes me happy." Olivia gestured at the elaborate setup. "This is what people with money think romance looks like. Grand gestures and expensive displays that look impressive but do not actually mean anything. Do you know what would have made me happy? A text asking how my day was. Takeout food waiting at my apartment because you knew I would be too tired to cook. Something real, not this performance for strangers." Julian stood silent, and Olivia could see hurt flashing across his face. But she needed him to understand this fundamental truth about who she was and what she needed. The growing crowd of onlookers made everything worse, turning what should have been a private conversation into public drama. "I am going home," Olivia said quietly. "Thank you for the gesture, but this is not us. This is not what I want." She walked away, leaving Julian standing among the candles and roses. Behind her, she could hear the murmur of disappointed spectators and the pianist trailing off uncertainly. Olivia kept her head high until she reached the subway station, and only then did she let the tears fall. 3 days of silence. Olivia did not hear from Julian for 3 days. She told herself it was for the best, that the failed grand gesture proved they were too different to make this work. But every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped, hoping it was him. The disappointment when it was not felt sharper each time. Jennifer tried to be supportive, but even she gently suggested that maybe Olivia had been too harsh. He was trying to be romantic. Is that really so terrible? It was not about the gesture itself, Olivia explained for the 3rd time. It was about him not understanding what I actually need. I do not want to be put on display. I do not want romance that comes with an audience. I need someone who gets that my life is complicated and small and real. On the 4th day, Olivia arrived home from another exhausting shift to find a simple brown paper bag sitting outside her apartment door. Inside was still warm Chinese takeout from the restaurant down the street, along with a handwritten note on plain paper. "I am sorry. I got it wrong. Can we try again? Just you and me, no cameras or crowds. Julian." Olivia held the note for a long time, feeling the careful weight of his words. This was what she had asked for, something simple and real. She pulled out her phone and typed a message before she could overthink it. "Tomorrow evening. My apartment. I will make dinner. Nothing fancy." His response came within seconds. "I will be there. Thank you for another chance." The real connection. Julian arrived exactly on time the next evening, wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt. He carried a bottle of wine that looked nice, but not ridiculously expensive, and his expression was uncertain in a way that made Olivia's heart soften. "Come in." She stepped aside, suddenly self-conscious about her tiny apartment with its mismatched furniture and walls thin enough to hear the neighbors arguing. This is home. Not much to look at, but it is mine. Julian stepped inside and looked around with genuine interest. He noticed the photographs on the small bookshelf, pictures of Olivia's family and friends arranged carefully among her nursing textbooks. He smiled at the collection of coffee mugs on the kitchen counter, each one clearly picked up from different places over the years. "It feels like you," Julian said simply, "warm and real and welcoming." Olivia had made pasta with marinara sauce. Nothing complicated, but one of the few dishes she could prepare reliably after long work shifts. They sat at her small kitchen table, knees almost touching in the cramped space, and ate while music played softly from her phone. "I am sorry about the other night," Julian said after they had eaten in comfortable silence for a while. "You were right. I was showing off, trying to prove something instead of just being with you. That is not what you need, and it is not really what I want either. I am sorry, too, for walking away like that." Olivia set down her fork. "I could have been kinder about explaining how I felt. You were trying to do something nice, and I made you feel bad about it in front of all those people. The crisis that changes everything." Julian reached across the table and took her hand. "Can we start over? No grand gestures, no trying to impress each other. Just two people figuring this out together. I would like that." Olivia squeezed his hand, feeling the rightness of this moment in her small kitchen far more than she had felt in the plaza surrounded by candles and roses. They moved to her sagging couch, sitting close together while Julian told her about his week. He had realized, after the failed gesture, that he did not actually know what made her happy because he had been too busy trying to create movie moments instead of learning who she really was. "So tell me," Julian turned to face her, "what does make you happy? The real things, not what you think you should say." Olivia thought about it carefully. "Quiet mornings with good coffee. My brother calling to tell me about something exciting in his classes. Helping a patient who comes back to thank me for taking care of them. Walking through the city when the weather is perfect. Really good conversations that make me forget to check the time. Those are all things I can do or be part of." Julian smiled. No spotlights or audiences required. They were about to kiss when Olivia's phone rang shrilly. She groaned, ready to ignore it, but then saw it was her mother calling. Her mother never called this late unless something was wrong. "Mom, what happened?" Olivia answered, feeling fear spike through her. Her mother's voice was shaky and scared. "It is Tyler. He collapsed at school. They took him to the hospital, and they are running tests. Olivia, the doctors think it might be his heart. They are talking about valve problems and possibly needing surgery." Standing together, Olivia felt the room spin. Tyler was only 20 years old and had always been healthy. Heart surgery meant massive medical bills their family could not possibly afford. It meant Tyler might have to leave school, might face complications, might need ongoing care. "I will get the next flight out." Olivia was already mentally calculating what she had in savings, knowing it would not be nearly enough. "Mom, tell Tyler I am coming. Tell him everything will be okay." After she hung up, Olivia sat frozen on the couch, trying to process this new crisis stacking on top of all her existing worries. Julian's hand on her shoulder brought her back to the present moment. "Tell me what you need," Julian said quietly. "How can I help?" "You cannot." Olivia's voice came out harsher than she intended. "This is not something money can fix." "Well, it is, but I cannot ask you for that. I just need to figure out how to get home and what to do about work and how to help my family through this. Let me drive you to the airport. At least let me do that." Julian stood, pulling out his phone. "What time do you need to leave?" Olivia wanted to refuse, to maintain her independence and handle everything herself the way she always did. But exhaustion and fear made her defenses crumble. "Okay, thank you." What Julian did next surprised her. He did not offer money or try to solve the problem with his wealth. Instead, he helped her pack a small bag, called the hospital to let them know she had a family emergency, and drove her to the airport in his understated car. He waited with her until boarding, holding her hand and listening when she needed to talk about her fears. "I will call you when I land," Olivia said as they announced her flight. "Julian, Thank you for not trying to throw money at this. That is not what you need from me right now. Julian kissed her forehead gently. You need someone who will just be there. So, I am here, however you need me. Learning to lean, the next week was one of the hardest of Olivia's life. Tyler's heart condition was serious and required surgery. The initial hospital bills were staggering, and Olivia spent hours on the phone with insurance companies and hospital billing departments trying to negotiate payment plans her family could manage. Julian called every day, but he never asked about money. He asked how Tyler was feeling, how her parents were holding up, how she was managing the stress. He sent her funny pictures when he knew she needed distraction and stayed on the phone with her late at night when she could not sleep. On the fourth day, when Tyler's surgery was successful but the financial reality was crushing her family, Olivia finally broke down. She called Julian at 2 in the morning, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. I do not know what to do. Olivia gasped between tears. The bills are over $200,000 even with insurance. My parents might lose their house. Tyler feels guilty like this is his fault. I have been working so hard to keep everyone afloat, and now everything is falling apart anyway. Julian listened without interrupting, letting her cry and rage and express all the fear she had been holding inside. When she finally grew quiet, exhausted from emotion, he spoke gently. What if I told you the bills were already taken care of? Would you be angry? Olivia felt her breath catch. What do you mean? I called the hospital yesterday and paid off Tyler's medical bills. All of them. Julian's voice was steady. Before you get upset, please listen. I did not do it to control you or to make you feel obligated to me. I did it because I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and you have been killing yourself trying to hold your family together. This is money I will never miss, but it means everything to your family. Finding balance, Olivia did not know whether to feel relieved or angry or grateful or ashamed. Julian, that is too much. I cannot accept that kind of help. Why not? Julian asked simply. If our positions were reversed and I needed something you could easily give, would you help me? Of course I would, Olivia answered without hesitation. Then let me help you. Not because I think you owe me anything, or because I am trying to buy your affection, but because I care about you, and I hate seeing you suffer when I have the ability to make things better. Please, Olivia, let me do this. Olivia sat in the dark hospital waiting room, tears streaming down her face again. But this time they were tears of relief mixed with gratitude and 1,000 complicated emotions she could not name. Okay. Thank you. I do not know how to repay you. You do not repay gifts, Julian said gently. You just accept them and maybe, if you want to, you let me keep being part of your life. I want that, Olivia whispered. I really want that. 3 months later, Olivia stood in the observation room watching Tyler run on a treadmill for his 3-month post-surgery checkup. His recovery had been remarkable, and he would be returning to school next semester. Their parents' house was safe, their father was managing his own health better, and the crushing weight of financial crisis had lifted. Julian stood beside her, his hand warm in hers. They had spent the past 3 months learning how to balance their different worlds. Julian had stopped trying to impress her with extravagant gestures and instead showed up in small, meaningful ways. He brought her coffee during long shifts, listened to her decompress after difficult days, and sat with her in companionable silence when she was too tired for conversation. Olivia had learned to accept help without feeling like she was losing her independence. She let Julian drive her places sometimes, accepted his offers to pick up dinner when she worked late, and slowly began to trust that his feelings for her were real and not based on some fantasy of dating someone outside his usual world. They still faced challenges. There were moments when the gap between their lifestyles created friction. Times when Julian's work demanded attention that pulled him away. Instances when Olivia's pride made her refuse help she actually needed. But they worked through each issue by talking honestly and remembering what had brought them together in the first place. He looks good, Julian observed as Tyler finished his test with strong vital signs. You must be relieved. More than I can say. Olivia leaned against Julian's shoulder. Thank you for everything you did for my family. I know I have said it before, but I need you to know how much it mattered. You would have found a way. Julian kissed the top of her head. You always do. I just made it easier. The real gesture. That evening, Julian took Olivia to the Blue Door Cafe, where they had shared their first real conversation. Mrs. Park greeted them warmly, already knowing their usual orders. They sat at the same table by the window, and Olivia felt the peace that came from being somewhere that had become special to them. I have been thinking about something, Julian said as they shared a blueberry muffin. You told me once about your dream of opening a free clinic for underserved communities. What if we made that happen? Olivia looked up sharply. Julian, we talked about this. I do not want you just throwing money at my dreams. I am not. Hear me out. Julian pulled out a folder from his bag. I have been researching what it would take to start a community health center. Not a charity where I write a check and walk away, but a real partnership. You would run it, make all the medical decisions, build the program the way you envision it. I would handle the funding and business side, but only as much as you want me involved. Olivia opened the folder and saw detailed plans, research about community health needs, potential locations, staffing projections. This was not a hasty grand gesture. This was careful planning and genuine collaboration. You really researched this. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes as she read through the thoughtful documents. I want to support your dreams, not replace them with mine. Julian reached across the table. So what do you think? Want to change the world together? Olivia thought about the rushed morning when she had walked into examination room 12 to meet a VIP patient. She had expected another entitled executive, but had found Julian instead, lonely and tired and surprisingly real. That encounter had shifted both their lives in ways neither could have predicted. Yes, Olivia smiled through her tears. Let us do this together. Julian stood and pulled her to her feet, drawing her into a kiss that felt like promise and partnership and coming home. Around them, the cafe continued its evening rhythm, but Olivia and Julian existed in their own world, where wealth and struggle had found unexpected balance. They had learned that love was not about grand gestures or fairy tale romance. It was about showing up, listening, supporting dreams, and finding ways to build something meaningful together. Their worlds would always be different, but they had created a space between them where both could exist fully as themselves. 6 months forward. The Community Health Center opened 6 months later in the same neighborhood as the Blue Door Cafe. Olivia worked there 3 days a week while maintaining her hospital position, providing free medical care to families who could not afford treatment. Julian sat on the board but let Olivia make all clinical decisions, supporting her vision without trying to control it. Tyler graduated from college with honors and was accepted into a prestigious graduate program. Their parents visited New York for the first time, and Olivia watched nervously as they met Julian over dinner at a modest restaurant she had chosen. Her father shook Julian's hand firmly and thanked him quietly for helping their family. Her mother hugged him and whispered that she could see he made Olivia happy. On a cool autumn evening, exactly 1 year after their first coffee date, Julian and Olivia stood on the roof of her apartment building, watching the sunset paint the city golden. She still lived in her small apartment, though Julian had offered countless times to help her find something bigger. She liked her home, liked the neighborhood, liked the life she had built through her own hard work. Are you happy? Julian asked, pulling her close against the evening chill. Olivia thought about the question. She thought about her work that gave her purpose, her family that was healthy and thriving, the clinic where she was making a real difference in people's lives. She thought about the man beside her who had learned to love her not by trying to, fix her problems, but by standing beside her as she solved them herself. "Yes," Olivia answered truthfully, "I am really happy." Julian kissed her as the sun dropped below the horizon, and Olivia knew that their story was still being written. There would be more challenges, more moments when their different backgrounds created friction, more times when they would need to communicate and compromise and choose each other. But they had learned the most important lesson. Love was not about one person saving the other, or about erasing differences to pretend they did not exist. It was about two people choosing to build something together, brick by brick, conversation by conversation, compromise by compromise. The Millionaire and the nurse had found something more valuable than wealth or status. They had found partnership, respect, genuine connection, and a love built on seeing each other truly and accepting what they found. And that was worth more than all the grand gestures in the world. The end.